All right, I am restoring a Lionel 2343 family set. So it's a 2343 AB combo. And before we got into the touching up painting, I kind of wanted to get a test shell and just mess around with it before we messed up the family set that we've had since new. So this is my test shell. I'm going to be using these testers: flat black, flat white, olive drab. Olive drab, just trust me. So on one side of the shell, I masked everything off, used a fine brush, and went down and hand striped just straight white paint. And everything came out really crisp and really bright and really vibrant, and it looks really good. And it looks nothing like the kind of off-white that it originally was. And then on my set, I have the same thing. The shell was cast in yellow plastic, and I don't want that big yellow scar in places. So we're going to mix up the paints and show you kind of the idea. All right, so if you mix mostly black and a little bit of white in, you get a very, very, very dark gray. And the very dark gray matches pretty closely, but it's got this bluish hint hue to it. And this, when you put just the black and white next to it, you realize it's got kind of a greenish tint to it. Now that might be partially the color, or it might be partially the age. So we're going to wipe off this dot we put on there, and then do the same thing, but we're going to add a little bit of olive drab to our gray. Okay, same thing. Olive drab. It really shiny wet, but it's almost the exact same color. So if you're doing a little yellow spot and you were to hit it very, very, very lightly, we're going to switch brushes. Hit this very, very, very lightly and kind of soften around the edges. Dry brush a little bit. I'm going to be able to touch up that spot and not really see a whole lot. The yellow just disappears. Come down here, we got a little raised section. This edge has got a little bit on it. And just by hitting it, it really does blend in. If somebody gets really close, are they going to see it? Yeah, but it's not a restoration. For me, this is just a little bit of touch-up on a couple of big areas to hide that yellow a little bit. And the trick for us was black and white makes this really, really nice gray. This really isn't gray. How do you get that age? Well, age is usually yellowing. So just a little bit of olive drab paint, and we can get rid of that yellow and get a color that's almost identical, and color mix and make it match. And when you step back, the camera is about 8 inches away from the frame, or the shell. 8 inches away, I can't see where I touched up. Now, my thought was, if that worked, if the olive drab was the secret to getting it to look the way it's supposed to, would olive drab and white be what I want for my lines? So let me mix that up real fast. So my little color palette. So I put a big drop of Tester's white on, and then one little tiny tip like this of olive drab added to the white, and I get this kind of slightly off-white, slightly yellow color. Big drop of olive green. You can see that it's green. We don't want that. We just want white that's just kind of muted down a little bit. This is a superfine lining brush. I got this at Michael's Crafts. But we're going to do one little line up front and just show you how this looks. Okay, quick and dirty in a hurry. So, without doing any masking, just drawing a line on it with the brush, this is what I get. Now, when I go straight white paint on there makes it a little bit very bright. Okay? And when you look at the old stripes, even in the spot where the old stripe is still pretty good, like down here, you can still see through it a little bit. So if you thin out your white and olive drab, you can get a little bit of that see-through quality that some of the lines, the original lines, used to have. So let's show you the finished family heirloom shells and how this came out. So this is our finished touched up shell. Now, some of the white lines were still in really, really good shape. I didn't have to repaint everything, but in places where they had rubbed away, like there was a rubbed out section up in here, if you take your time and try to make it a little bit see-through, you can see like the imperfections in the stamps. You can go back in, touch some of that up. Okay, you can see just a little bit of my touch up right on the edge, just a little tiny bit. From 8 inches away, you can't see it. When you're 4 inches away underneath the camera and lights, yeah, it shows up a little bit. But this shell, we touched up the edges. There was lots of yellow showing on edges. There was a lot of yellow showing on the top around the vents. So this set all cleaned up. I had to put a new New York Central decal on the front because this one was really, really chipped up. But the touch-up came out really, really, really nice. And when you look at the set together, you know, I achieved the goal I wanted. I've got my solid white lines again. My New York Central, I didn't have to repaint every single letter, but in a couple little places I had a touch up. And it all came out nice and crisp and clean again. Now, before doing any of this, you have to ask yourself the question. When you start doing painting, when you start doing restoration, what are you trying to accomplish? Are you trying to make it look factory perfect again? If you are, that's really, really, really hard to do for amateur restorers. If you're just trying to touch it up a little bit, great. Understand the moment you start touching things up, you can decrease the value pretty significantly. Everybody likes original. In this case, it's a family set. I'm not going to turn around and try to sell it. I'm not worried about the value. I'm just interested in keeping this thing running for the next generation so that someday, you know, grandkids can play with this and it still looks crisp and clean. I'm not going to pick it up and hold the locomotive over the top and run my hands over the New York Central. I always pick it up underneath the ends where I'm not going to damage the stripes. But our finished set looks pretty darn good again. Perfect? No. It's 70 years old. E-unit hums. Takes off beautifully in reverse. These old dual motor F3s just have that wonderful growl. And you can see, we touched up a little bit on the front. It still looks original because I took my time. I masked stuff off. I'm very good at painting. I have a very steady hand. And I touched up when needed touched up, but I didn't repaint every single stripe. Everything's all done. We took this apart, washed all the parts, put all new lubricant in the wheels, in the gears. cleaned up the rollers, checked the wires, checked the light bulb contact, cleaned the E-unit to make sure the E-unit would cycle. We did everything mechanical that we needed to do, and then on the outside, just a little bit of touch up here and there, just to kind of get rid of some of the 70 years of play. So our finished 2343 Lionel.